So welcome to Alberta Betsy's Van Life, everybody. And tonight we have Hrvoje Morovic. Did I say that right, Hrvoje?
Moric. Moric.
Moric. Okay,
Yeah.
from Geopolitics and Empire. So welcome.
Good to be here.
So I guess first of all, we'd like, if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit of an idea of who Hrvoje is. I know you're a teacher, but I think that goes way above and beyond just being a teacher. I think you've excelled in quite a few areas in that profession.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm originally from Chicago, American. Also grew up in Croatia, so I'm also Croatian ethnically. And then I've studied teaching and history. So I was a history teacher. I was a teacher. It's been, I think, about 4 years where I haven't been teaching. I've been doing radio and podcasts the last 4 years. Um, so yeah, after my studies, I did Peace Corps Mongolia. So I lived in Mongolia where I taught English in a yurt in minus 30, minus 40 degrees in a tent. I lived in the Gobi. And I used, was it camel dung, sheep, as well. What do you call it? The sheep pellets. And I think horse dung together with coal to warm the stove in my tent. Um, and then
Wow.
I studied international relations in Geneva, master's degree. While I was there, I was a staff assistant at the European Union, United Nations, and then came to Mexico where I taught, and then started my podcast as a hobby, and then went off to Russia for 3 weeks in 2017 on a citizens diplomacy trip with 30 Americans. We hung out with Gorbachev for 2 hours and other Russian businessmen, intellectuals, and then went off to Kazakhstan for 3, 4 years to teach. And COVID happened. I came back to Mexico and did the radio show for 2 years, TNT Radio. And then it's been 2 years, almost to the day, 2 years that I've been podcasting full time. I quit TNT Radio on the Ides of March 2024, which is in 2 days, I guess this weekend, and been trying full time the podcast now for 2 years, and we're surviving somehow.
Now, I watched you or listened to you on TNT Radio, and you had a lot of really good guests. Did it just get too much for you? Did the contract end?
Oh, no, it got too much.
Yeah.
It was they were in the process of failing
Hmm.
because it's difficult to succeed in general in this industry. And I could see the writing on the wall. And usually, what happens in those cases, they ask you to double, triple your workload. So they were
Hmm.
offloading on us the work, and it was too much. It got to the point where I was doing the job of two people, and then them just being too many demands, right? I
Yeah.
I just physically could not. No one, I think, could, because I was being producer and host at the same time. And so I
Yeah.
was scheduling 10 guests a week, preparing the shows, doing the shows. And then they wanted more than 10. And I'm like, I can't. I'm tapping out. And then 6 months later,
Right.
I foresaw that. I'm good at foreseeing things, right? 6 months later, they um, threw the towel and they lost financing. But because it's difficult to monetize radio and
Yeah.
podcast. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything seems to be getting more and more difficult out there for us to get out any kind of messages, or unless you're toting the line of what the narrative of what they want, of course. Now, 11 years ago, I never liked school. I never did well in school. And it was put on my heart to research history. I can't get enough history. I love history. Um, so I am super excited to be talking with you because you have so much knowledge in history. So one thing that I wanted to bring up that is a big topic of conversation, I guess, right now is everything that's going on in Israel. And I keep going back to Napoleon and the 1795 to 18th century area when he went in, he conquered Egypt. He went and he changed all the financial markets. He developed the stock market, wasn't it? The stock market. And 18th century, he announced that he wanted to set up a nation for the Jewish community. Um, Albert Pike, the British were also included in a lot of that building up of the Jewish national community. And also, um, I find if it was brought up in the 18th century and then again in World War II, and now it's coming to our attention again now, does that not look like it's something that's been planned?
Well, I'm not familiar with Napoleon and the stock market. I think Albert Pike was in the 1800s. Yeah, right. He was the Freemason, I believe, general as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had a guest on recently. I think it was Eric Rice, who said that well, basically the movement of Zion, political Zionism. I think we can differentiate. There is a spiritual, biblical version of Zionism, but also this political one. And that seems to have been largely created in the late 17, hundreds, 1800s. And, a lot of the founders were not even believers in a God. They were secular atheists. Was it Herzog and others? Um, Herzl. I was recently looking at Werner Herzog, Theodore Herzl, I think. But Yeah, so I mean, I'm of the opinion that there's a divergence here. So I'm getting lost. But your question was on uh,
Well, basically, from what I've uncovered, Napoleon went in and between 1895, I think it was 18, no, 17, excuse me, 1798. I think that's when he put the Pope in prison. That's when the Catholic Church lost its political arm. Um, so I guess this is why I'm bringing it up. And it was he had been trying to work on that. And when the Pope went in, from what I've uncovered, went into to prison, that's when all the secret societies through 95 to the 1800, that all the secret societies started flourishing and going out to do their part. Um, and that's when Napoleon in 1800, I think it was actually in May, he announced that he wanted to set up a nation for the Jewish community. But there was nothing else done or said about it after that point. I think just the seed was planted. But I just found it interesting that it did go back that far. And then Albert Pike mentioned that there would be the Third World War would be fought, and the two countries in Israel would be one, that they would fight to total annihilation, and then all the other countries in the world um, would fight to basic utter exhaustion. So, what is your take on that? There's so many different scenarios coming out of this. Is there a regime change? I personally think it's the Abrahamic Accord, and I think it's setting up the technocracy, the technical, the 10 kingdoms, basically.
Yeah, I think the secret societies, I mean, existed earlier. 1776 was the Illuminati was founded. And in fact, I think the French Revolution, which preceded Napoleon, was run by these secret societies
Hmm.
to overthrow the old order, to bring in this, occult, new age. I'm Dr. Martin Erdman, who I share his material a lot. He recently wrote a book whose some of his stuff is touching on this, where he's basically explaining we've been under the Babylonian Empire since way back when. You had the Babylonian Empire, which used, you know, the economic system of mercantilism, and then every empire falls, and so they fell, and then in Rome they just move, they transition, and then they were in Rome. A lot of Rome, according to his sources, were made up of Babylonians or some percentage. And then when Rome fell, these they were called the Venetians, and then they called themselves the New Romans. And then once they started battling, I think with the Catholic Church, they moved, or forget who the adversary was. They had to move all their wealth, and they fled to Netherlands and Spain, up north to Britain, and then from there to America, and then America recreated the European empire, the EU as an empire, right? And so it's kind of like we're coming full circle. And then you're talking about Pike. I think we have to be careful with Pike, because that letter where he talks about the Third World War, it's never been
Hmm.
sourced, as far as I can tell. So there's no actual primary source for it, but the content of it appears to be coming to fruition, which
Yes.
tells you something. So
Yes.
again, I think I often say we have to be careful. There's no source for it, but at the same time, it appears to be the trajectory, and it remains to be seen, And so I think it remains to be seen. We just had Netanyahu this week come out and say, what did he say? We're going to make it for the Messiah, something to that extent. And he said Israel is going to become a global power. Now, I do find it odd that a segment of alternative media that has just come out of nowhere is now all of a sudden promoting these ideas of Pax Judaica, like that Chinese professor. And I find
Yes. I
some of
saw
the,
him. I saw him. He's just popped up
but
and he's in my feed and he's in my feed constantly.
my impression is that he is manufactured. Someone did an article recently saying he could be, so I think I'm trying to I'm understanding now as of late, it almost appears that where they want to take us, their strategy is to prime us first through alternative media
Yes.
to
Yes.
normalize this idea. So it's kind of like all of a sudden you hear this talk of Pax Judaica just in the last few months, a year. And then you hear Netanyahu come out and talk about global Israel. So you can kind of see they prepped us first
Yes.
through alt media, which then seeps into mainstream media.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives you the idea that these people how do you pop out of nowhere, in alt media?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and as you say, you're not even looking. He's in your face.
He
Um,
was.
and someone on Substack did some research and found that there's enough evidence to say, I think he was kicked out of China. He was at the Ivory, what do you call it, like Yale University. And then there was an article from 2017, CNN that said, he'd been kicked out. And a lot of these people who get kicked out of China, who get involved in media in the West, are usually promoting a US or globalist narrative. So, anyways, well, I think we'll have to see, but how things go. But in this work that we do, I have multiple hypotheses, right? And you just wait at how the trajectory goes. And if we go towards one direction, okay, then it was this hypothesis, right? Not this one. And
Hmm.
as you said, if we do go that route, the war escalates, and probably Al-Aqsa gets a missile, as they've talked about, and then all hell breaks loose. Maybe a nuke is used, because one of the reasons they want to use the nuke is well, we already see what they're doing with the energy.
Yeah.
Someone just
Yeah.
posted just an hour ago, I caught a news out of New Zealand that said 50%, and it doesn't matter if it's actually true or not. I think they're hyping it up. This is a story that there's been a 50% increase in purchases or interest in electric vehicles in New Zealand because of the
So,
fuel crisis. That's probably false, but
yeah.
the narrative is what's important. So they've engineered this energy crisis on purpose, and it's COVID 2.0,
Yeah.
right? They're bringing in the stay at home, and then they want to push you to away from gas cars to electric vehicles, which can be controlled. But I'm going all over the place here. So if they do escalate the war, my impression is it would be sold to the world as this crazy fight between the Abrahamic crazy faiths, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And through this manufactured war, do many things. One of them to discredit the Abrahamic religions, and what's most important for me is Christianity as a Christian, that they would discredit Christianity, even though the people participating who call themselves Christians, in my mind, are not Christians, right?
No.
Um, and so they would discredit uh, Christianity. Then they would bring in this New Age religion, which is primarily, which we're already being primed for. It's universalist, which means bring all world religions together, and it's also deeply theosophic. You go back to the 1800s, Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey. Theosophy is a fact. I'll say it in a different way. For me, theosophy is effectively trying to convince the world Satan is the good guy,
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah.
Um, that's what
Yeah.
theosophy is. It's
And
just, yeah.
it's working. There's a lot of people that are snowballed by it. I mean, I think what I see going on right now is a whole lot of things speeding up and a whole lot of mishmash confusion stuff. That guy that we were speaking about, that gentleman, I listened to him and I can see how people would get extremely confused fast if they weren't grounded in research and what's going on. And same with what's going on with the war right now with in Iran. There's uh so much lies and false videos coming out and everything. And if people don't get grounded, and we have an opportunity right now to try to reach some people, but if they don't get grounded now, it's going to go too fast, and they're muddying the waters so much. There's so much false videos, and with AI, it's going to be almost impossible if you're not going to get grounded now. And that's I felt for years I had a another channel, and it was a Christian channel, and I would just put up, the verses and stuff and puttering at it, and it didn't feel right. So I took some time away from it. And then just after Christmas, um, it was put on my heart that you need to do something now. So I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do it, but I have a platform. Let's just try to do it. Let's try to get things out because I think now is the time. There's going to come a time soon where our freedom of speech is going to be shut down and things are not going to be able to get out there. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing and learning as I go.
Yeah, and just to add to your last point, I used to joke, there's the meme of we demand better psyops because we know everything that they're planning pretty much. And I do have to admit, as of late, they are giving us, in some senses, better psyops. So I have to admit, this is like probably one of the first times I'm admitting that it's getting increasingly difficult, even for me, to stay on top of things. There's so
Yeah.
much going on. There's information overload. In fact, somebody tweeted the other day, man was not made. We were not made to consume this much information. I believe we were meant to live in an analog world, physical, your physical locality, no digital, and all is what's in your immediate vicinity. And
Mhm.
when and then where you can travel, you know, but the internet, what it's done, I don't think we were meant to process this much data as a single person. And then now, I think even I am manipulated unknowingly. Sometimes the guests that I get, some of them that I choose, some that are pitched to come on, and I don't know, I cannot know exactly who this person is and what are their motivations. And they could be very sly, very subtle, right? And coming on and then how do you differentiate between this person is interesting. I want to hear what they have to say.
Hmm.
Versus, are they using me to propagandize? It's extremely difficult, and there's no way to become fully immune from
And
that, which is why
yes,
the onus is on the viewer, listener to discern. But like I said, with alt media is getting flush with, and I can sense in the alt media space that the globalists are getting better uh, at deceiving us. For
yes.
me, Alex Jones was like kindergarten level deception. And then you got this Chinese professor now, and then
Hmm. Yeah.
others, which are even more subtle. So, and it goes what the Bible says that the deceptions will become increasingly sophisticated in the last days, where even people like Christians who were told and aware of this, they're going to be so good that some will be
Yeah.
almost deceived or deceived.
Well,
So,
yeah. And if you look at, I don't understand it, Paula White. I mean, that I don't understand people that can actually, and this is not putting down people. I've been deceived in my life lots. And I'll be deceived probably a little bit more as I stumble along through this journey. But I look at her and I just think it's just there will be miracles. It says there's miracles coming. But if you've got a handle on things okay now, and I just don't understand how people can actually fall for these mega churches and Paula White, and because it's just it when you see it, it should strike you automatically right away that there's something not right with this in your spirit. It's just such a bizarre world. I don't like it here anymore. I don't want to be here.
well, yeah,
Hrvoje, you've got children. It must be such a burden on you. Like I've thought of that with people so much. It must be a burden for those that have young children. I don't have it anymore. I have grandchildren, but still, you know.
I mean, it is and it isn't. You just go on living life. But as you say, like the Paula Whites, I mean, first of all, if you believe in the Bible and Christianity, it's implicit, and it's implicit that you don't have female pastors.
Yeah.
So number one, she's immediately like she's right there, no, something is wrong. She's wrong. Completely.
Yeah.
Like, no, game over. Game over right there. But if you want even more, check marks, yeah, the things that the way that she behaves, I mean, first, and the way she dresses, as is purported, I saw where her shirt is hanging over her shoulder. I'm like, okay, what is that? While she's in front of the congregation. And then yeah, it's just demonic. That like those people are demonic, and the mega church, it's a false gospel. Like it's clearly not Christianity. Wolves in sheep's clothing, prosperity gospel. I mean, I can't understand. To me, it's completely alien, and I can't understand the Americans who attend, the Joel Osteen type churches. It's on
No.
its face completely false.
Well,
But the Bible says that people want to hear what they want to hear. They don't want the
it's
truth.
yours.
They're
Yeah.
greedy. They want money. They want prosperity. They want health. They're stuck in the material,
Yeah.
world.
I know when COVID hit, I it was surreal to me. And it still is surreal to me. And it's something that I can have not been able to work out of. When I look at people like during COVID and they were wearing masks and following everything, and it was so bizarre to me to see it. And it's still everything that's going on now. There's still those that that are following the narrative, and it doesn't matter what you do, you cannot wake them up. You cannot grab their attention for them to go and look at something or even critical think. And it's sad and it's surreal, but it's unsettling, I find. Um, have you felt that way as well? Like I know it goes along with there'll be a strong delusion. That's where I kind of put it.
As of late, yeah, but a number of my listeners as well often bring this up about waking people up. I mean, from my perspective, my number one thing about waking up, and I don't do it as overtly, is the number one thing to wake up about is Jesus. Uh,
Yes.
the number two is the global totalitarianism. Um, but I've gotten to a point, after you do this for a while, I guess I'm getting middle-aged in the midlife crisis era. Um, and when I was younger, and I think this is just a natural cycle as it should be. And I think the onus should be now on the current crop of teenagers and 20-year-olds and early 30-year-olds to get out there. Because when I started teaching, in my 20s, so for over a decade, I was in the trenches because you're younger, you're more vigorous, you're more intense, and I'm teaching all about this stuff and starting the podcast. And now I'm just kind of you mellow out a bit, so I still want to do it, but it's like the priority shift, your mission shifts a bit, step a bit in the back, and I'm not as how would I say? I just kind of state I'm observing what's going on, analyzing, and stating it matter of factly, and whoever hears, hears, whoever doesn't, doesn't. And so I'm just
Yeah.
kind of caring less about waking people up. It's like you get it or you don't get it. I'll speak to the people who are getting it. Maybe some of you who don't get it will come over, but I'm not going to focus so much on the people who don't get it. And
Mm.
you really, if you're out in the real world with people, you can't bang them over the head either.
No, no,
It's not, it's the,
no, I did
you
that.
just can't. From a human level, it's like, and you have to balance, like you have to congregate, be, nice with everyone, try to get along. Some people just don't want to hear it. They're like, la, la, la. And if you try to tell them about it, they're just gonna call you crazy and walk away and not want to hang out with you. So, that's not how you want to do it.
Yeah.
So there's some people where if they're friends or family, you wanna be friends with them, hang out. You shouldn't let these things get between you and people, is my perspective. And so
Hmm.
be friends with normies and don't talk about conspiracies if they can't handle it. And then sometimes people will open the door and be like, hey, you know, tell me about this thing. And I think
Hmm.
the best way currently to get across, wake people up, is by modeling. So, what's as a parent, what's the best way to teach your children? Not to instruct them, but simply model success, model the behavior that you want. Because they're gonna, everyone knows this. They'll hear what you say, but if you're doing something stupid, they'll see you're a hypocrite, right? And so,
There you go. Yeah.
um, I found most success in just having a successful podcast, to an extent, and then being able to talk to so many authoritative figures, and then making accurate predictions. And so people, when they see that, they see you're not crazy, and I
Hmm.
think that registers, and that sort of shakes something in their head, and like, okay, maybe I was wrong, you know. So
And another thing I keep going back to is I'm not in control, Jesus is. So if he wants them to know, he'll take care of things. It probably could do it a lot better than I have been doing it anyway. I beat them over the head, but I've given up on that now. So, you know. So where do you think, changing topics here, where do you think we're going to be heading, your opinion, with this war in Iran? I it's brutal, just like Gaza. I see a lot of conditioning going on because they're not holding back. And if there's a lot of conditioning going on for lack of constitutions and morals and bombing schools with schoolgirls in it, I don't think. I think they can pretty well gauge where those missiles are going. I don't think that was an accident, but that's my personal opinion. Because if they can not hit AI data centers, but they can hit two schools, I don't know, there's just something that's not sitting with me right there.
Yeah, I think I'd like to say or think that I don't think it'll go into a World War II style World War III. I think up until now we've seen low intensity conflict. I'm comparing to World War II level, and a number of my guests tend to also be saying that World War III was it Marshall McLuhan who said, World War III is the merging of the civil and the military. It's everything all at once, like information, spiritual, psychological. And so I think the Third World War is psychological. They're at the phase of they want to mind control us into accepting the totalitarian world state, and they don't want to blow up all of the infrastructure. They're going surgically, as you can see, to remodel. Like you remodel a house, you don't destroy your whole house, right? You'll take down a wall here, uh, things like that. So I feel like that's what they're doing. Venezuela, Libya, Syria, maybe Cuba, Iraq. Those are the analog systems, the Windows XPs. And
Hmm.
they would need to upgrade the operating system to Windows 12 now, to the technocracy. So they're going in surgically, removing the analog, the old, parts of the house to renew it. So I think what they're going to do is just nonstop low intensity conflicts. Like I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm using that term in the sense of like World War II. So people are dying all over the place, Ukraine, Gaza, um, Middle East and elsewhere. Mexico. I mean, I had someone who was probably working for, NATO DHS trying to make me feel guilty on Insta. First they said that lie. I don't believe Iran killed 30,000 of its own citizens recently. Yes, it's an authoritarian regime, but that was a number. That was a number that was made up. And someone who purported to be following me on Instagram tried to guilt me and like, why aren't you talking about the 30,000 Iranians that are dying? And I'm like, nice try. And they never responded to me. I said, you must be one of those NATO bots. And I'm like, more people are dying in Mexico. In my Mexicans, I'm a citizen. So more people are dying here. I think the latest numbers like it's plus 100,000 in the last few years have disappeared Mexicans. I'm like, please, why is no one talking about Mexico? Why aren't you talking about
Yeah,
Mexico? Hundreds of
yeah,
thousands of dead Mexicans. That's nothing compared to the dead Iranians. So shut up,
yeah,
please.
yeah,
To
yeah.
the people. You're not getting. Well, I'm gonna flip the propaganda back on them. But anyways, where was I going? So I think they're gonna use these crises to bring us into the Great Reset, the world. I call it the global oligocracy. When we're already seeing it, like
Hmm.
and they go step by step manufacturing the crises. They hit Iran, and then the Strait of Hormuz problems. That's jacking up the prices of energy. Then they're telling people buy EVs. Then they're telling people stay home now. Thailand, what are all the countries as of late? Vietnam, Thailand, Denmark, UK. Um, you know, they're telling people to stay home, to ration fuel, rationing. It's like COVID. Stay home, lockdown. And then they're going to make, I think, the Middle Eastern, they're going to make Iran into a technocracy. And then once that's a technocracy, they can create a Middle Eastern Union. And that's happening simultaneously as they're making a North American Union. Last week or two, Hegseth declared the Greater North America.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're doing. They're remodeling each region, setting up the regional units that are digitized, technocratic. And then once those get to a certain level of development, that's your foundation for the world state. And you see the different factions throwing out their what do you call it? Their drafts, their proposals. Trump says they need a new world government. So we've got United Nations. It's not up to par. So they're like, do we upgrade the UN, remodel it for World Government 3.0? Or Trump is now pitching Board of Peace a new world government, or Xi Jinping just proposed global governance initiative. So he proposed a new world government. So you can kind of see that's where we're going at. And in the meantime, all governments are rapidly bringing in the technocracy. They just declared they want all operating systems to have identification checks, your smartphone operating systems, your laptop operating systems, your desktop operating systems. They want everyone to register their phones. They want all identification to be digital biometric, digital passports. And so at everything, every step of the way in life, you're going to have to ask for permission. It's not going to be like in the old days. You know, like when I was a kid, it's like you just get in the car and drive.
Yeah,
And I've
yeah,
done that. I've driven, around the states. And now it's like checkpoint Charlie. It's check papers, please, to do anything.
yes, yeah.
And one wrong move, you're 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 locked down at home. I think it's almost like they're
Hmm.
training us to, oh, you said this, you know what? You're not getting this job, you're fired. You can't drive your car, you get on the plane, buy the plane tickets, enter this country. So I think that's where we're heading. Yeah.
We're heading for not a fun time. I heard you have to do something with your phone in a few months.
Yeah, I mean, I just got what is it? Now I'm checking. I don't even open the message. We're now on our fifth SMS message, text message that I've not opened, but you can see the first, sentence or two. And it says, remember to link your identity to this number by the end of June, or so I've got 3 months left, or the line will be suspended.
Hmm.
So I'm supposed to go down to the office and give them, I guess, an identification. So then, because up until now, the phones don't have any name associated with them,
Okay,
but they're like
okay.
anonymous. So now they want to link your identity to the phone.
But is it that simple, or are they going to want your eyeballs and your fingerprints?
It's unclear. So I think I've read in some places that, any form of ID will do, and others they've said, so we have our national ID in Mexico. But again, this
Hmm.
is happening in all countries. Many countries now are asking for biometric ID verification for your phone and your national ID. And so here they've said for your Mexican national ID, they want you to go back in the office and to scan your eyes and fingers for that national ID.
Hmm.
And then some have said, then that is what you need to register your phone. So they're forcing you through the phone. Everyone wants their phone. They needs their phone. So they're like, okay, well, go back, go down to the office, update your national Mexican ID to make it a digital biometric ID, and then with that, register your phone. And if you don't do that, then you can't have your phone. And
Yeah.
then, if you don't do any of that, you literally can't buy or sell. They said
No.
if you don't update your biometrics, if you don't make, basically, we have an analog national ID right now, and they want to make it a biometric digital ID. So you have to go down to the office, scan your eyes and your fingers. If you don't do that, you literally cannot buy a house, sell a house, report, pay your taxes, get married, get divorced, put your kids in school, get health care, get pension. Your banking, I assume, at some point will be frozen because the bank will say, look, you haven't given us your new updated ID, so your banking is on pause. Go give your biometrics and come back. Mobile. If you
Yeah.
go renew your driver's license, your passport, all of that. So it's literally
Yeah.
like the mark of the beast. I don't think it is the mark of the beast. I
Mm-mm.
think it's the enforcement mechanism. So the mark of the beast, because again, it's always spiritual, the mark of the beast, when you bow down to the
Hmm.
state or to the false god. But I think we're seeing many examples. COVID was one, you know, commit suicide.
Yeah.
The Bible says suicide is a sin. It's going against God. So I
Hmm.
viewed taking the injection as a form of mark of as a form, or what do you call it, like archetype of the mark of the beast, because you're denying God,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because I believe this whole mark, it's your mindset. And it's the same it's same idea, or I guess I have the same opinion as Eric Rice did, your guest that you had on a couple of nights ago. It was a very interesting interview that you did with him. I enjoyed it. Um, and I believe it's what you're thinking and where your heart and mind are thinking and your actions. And if you are in fear or listening to everything that the government's telling you to do, even though it goes against your God-given rights, then that's where you need to pause and rethink things. Because if it does, it goes against your God-given rights. You don't go out and murder, you don't go out and steal because that goes against your grain. By putting on a mask, to me, that didn't feel right. And being told I had to do it, that was it. No, I'm not.
Yeah, and I'll add, are you still there? You froze for a second.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, yeah. Um, I've been kind of going through my head with this because I had a guest on who didn't agree with me, but at second and third thought, I used the example of the girl in the Florida pageant queen, and she won the pageant, but then she was asked to subsequently sign. You know how many councils or organizations have, rules you have to, when if you become a member, you have to sign. And they asked her to sign the new constitution of the pageant or something, and that included the transgender stuff, which would imply that, if you're signing off to agreeing that a man dressed as a woman can participate. So you're saying that a man can be a woman. For me, that is another example of mark of the beast, because the mark of the beast is that you must worship this antichrist, so to speak, and his system. And by doing that, you're saying he is God, and you're rejecting, Christ and the principles of the Bible. And here you are saying, yes, a man can be a woman. That's anti-biblical, So I feel like that's another example of, and what are you doing? You're bowing down to this God and saying, please let me keep my job and my status. I will deny Christ. I will deny reality, universal truths that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, just to keep, in these few moments that we're here on earth, just to keep, my job or something. I always think of Esau and the bowl of soup. He gave up his blessing for nothing, right? So
And it also says too that the Lord hates a coward. And it takes a lot for you to stand up, especially if you're standing up against something. They do experiments on that, where people will go along to get along, even if it's comes to a point of where you're harming somebody, and if the person who is
the
wearing a lab
parallelogram
coat,
experiment, yeah, I think.
yeah, or a doctor's coat, they'll just go along with it because they're the person of an authority type deal. And it takes a lot to step away from the narrative and the way everybody's going and kind of go over, there's something wrong, you know?
No, it is. It's difficult. I think some of us, I can't explain why I'm like that. I've always just been defiant. Um, and I love it. But it's also a personality trait that needs to be developed.
Yeah.
What's the other word for like nurtured and developed?
Yes.
COVID particularly helped us with that. And I think, a lot of people have that potential in them, but some are just naturally have a natural disposition to being yes men, yes people, yes women. So I think part of it, some of us have it by default naturally as an instinct, and then have to nurture it more. Um, but I've known people again that have tried to evangelize me about money being the most important. Why don't you make more money? Why don't you buy a bigger house? And then you understand from what they're saying, um, like they're putting on the pedestal all these vain material things. Like you're nobody if you don't have a mansion with 5 cars. And like, what are you talking about? Your worth as a
Mhm.
human is you as a human, your character, you're not determined the value of you this is why I don't care. When I meet people who are wealthy or have some status, I view them as the same. The Bible does imply it implies both things that you do have to respect hierarchies to a degree, but at the end of the day, that homeless person and some Bill Gates have equal value as a human soul, right? And so
Mhm.
going on a rant there, but yeah, so I don't know where we're
Rants
going.
are always good. Rants rants lead to good conversations or people walking out of the door. So, I guess basically before we close off here, um, where do you think that in the next, I don't know, do you think in the next few months that we're going to see anything happen on North American soil, Mexican soil? Because I have it always on my back burner, the Deagle report, and it was supposed to all happen 2025. I know that these elites are behind in their plans and stuff. Um, but I don't, it's something that I didn't hold on to and like it's, written in stone. It's something to put on the back burner. But I just found it interesting that um, it says that, if it did, those countries did see depopulation. Mexico doesn't change its population very much at all. Same with India. The States gets hit really hard. I think it's only 100 million left. I'm not sure what it's at now, but they say about 100 million. Canada, I think it's like 20 million get taken out. Um, and they say that it's not from war or plagues. So my guess would be the grid or the water supply. So what are your thoughts on any kind of retaliation from Iran towards uh, the states?
I mean, I don't really believe it would be Iran retaliating. It'd be the globalists behind false flag, just nonstop
Mhm.
false flag operations. I'm reading this book by a guy called Nicholas Hager. He's former MI6, and he actually mentions the Deagle reports and a lot of these subjects that we're talking about. Um, I think he's kind of like one of them because he wrote another. I got another one of his books. Well, give me a second. This one, where he says, World state, how a democratically elected world government can replace the UN and bring peace. And so I think he's a proponent of the world state. He kind of wants one that's more benevolent. Um, but anyway, I think you have to read this kind of stuff to see maybe he knows something that I don't, and he's telling us where we might be going. But you just made me think of the Deagle. Maybe COVID was their attempt to bring about. Well, number one, Deagle, we don't know. That's just one information point. So as you said,
Yeah,
keep it in the
yeah,
back of your mind. There's many
yeah.
data points, so it could actually be in
No,
the end meaningless. Deagle.
and you
Um,
can pick them out when your little scenarios coming into play, and you can and just toss it in.
yeah, and so it could have been nothing. If it was, maybe COVID was their attempt to do it, and they didn't succeed in getting the numbers that they wanted. So it
Hmm.
was not very successful in some regards, the COVID operation. Um, so yeah, like I said, we might just be on that slow boil. We had COVID operation, the Iran war now. So they're slowly, reconfiguring things, using the energy crisis to bring about rationing, to introduce the digitalization. I think with by and large, if they can get in the digitalization of everything, that's the most important. Because once every country now has the digital systems, you don't really not need many other events. Everyone's locked
Yeah.
down. You're
Yeah.
in this dystopian scientific dictatorship. They don't need, another world war. They don't need cyber, pandemic or whatever. But I think they'll probably throw a cyber false flag. So I was getting ready to do my weekly analysis, and you're seeing, on top of the energy crisis, you're seeing them attack the food. And they're blaming Iran for cyber attacks at banks recently. This was all war game 5 years ago. So you can kind of see the trajectory. This can be
Hmm.
used as the pretext to take down the current system, banks, electric grids, and then the solution will be, of course, bringing in maybe they'll propose a new system of energy, right? That's more secure. Maybe they'll show us new stuff, the small modular reactors, like rebuild the grid better, and then with that bring in CBDC stable coins. I don't know. So that's one scenario. I have said for over a year now that some factions appear to want a second American Civil War. And on top of that, they could also add in a second Mexican American war.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
So you're having war on the North American continent. Once that is hashed out, the solution is North American integration. So, but like I said, maybe they can do it without war on North America, as they have in, Africa. African Union exists. So they might be able to just slide us in there without major conflict. Or they'll say we're behind schedule, launch the Civil War and Mexican American War 2.0, or a large false flag. It seems people aren't buying this drone off of California. Like a lot of people are hip to the false flag stuff. I was a few weeks ago, we had narco blockades, terror in Mexico here. And it's possible because the news reports of like the Fox News are talking about they're somehow linking Mexican cartels and Iranian sleeper cells. So if they're linking them together, the official narrative, and we recently had this, this terror in Mexico,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
almost like then that was them warming up and practicing
Yeah.
for what they might carry out in the US. And so we could see a false flag on the level of 9/11, and then that will be justification for, all out war with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that they're facing a hard sell now in terms of public opinion internationally. You're just seeing it. No one believes. Everyone can see in terms of Israeli foreign policy, what they're doing, the aggression,
Yeah.
American as well. Cuba is about, I've said this for over a year now, Cuba is going to fall. And just today, I think it was the president, came out and said, we are now having talks with the US to see how to like basically normalize. And in
Yeah.
my mind, that's how to integrate into the tech nation.
Yeah. And when I look at the US and Trump, all I see is the he's making an image to the beast. That I'm on board with that, and I'm stuck with that. And I kind of wish that I had other areas that I would move into, but I'm stuck on that theory that it's basically Babylon and he's making an image to the beast.
Well,
And
the AI, I mean, you first interviewed the Ben Nunes and Yana just published today. And the great thing about her is she includes the sources. So she's
yes,
not making up some Jewish theories. I mean, she's Jewish herself, I believe, ethnically, and her
correct.
husband. And she just published the Chabad's own website where they talk about AI as the new Tower of Babel and saying it's a great thing and that why not unify the whole world? And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
And then you've got Trump building out the infrastructure for it,
yeah,
all of the Genius Act, Clarity Act, whatever, stablecoin systems. That's the infrastructure for this algorithm ghetto, and people need to wake up. Like
I
I,
I honest I honestly think that the main reason for this war with Iran right now is for the Abraham Accords to be signed and the Third Temple.
well, they need
Those,
because they've got Pahlavi 2.0, the Abraham Accords. I think they call them Abraham Accords minus Iran, but then if Iran joins, it'll be upgraded to Cyrus Accords. And then
okay.
of course Trump is like the what the ghost of Cyrus past, and
Yes.
so
Yeah.
yeah, then you'll have for a moment this, happy whatever Middle Eastern Abrahamic Cyrus union, and
And
then
Trump will be he will be praised again for having done that. If he can pull it off, he would it would give him his stature back because a lot of people don't like him right now. I don't
yeah,
know.
or all heck breaks loose. So in the midst of this, or the war goes nuclear. There's all this global chaos, economic collapse, social collapse. And then in the midst of all that comes some international world figure, right?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
starts getting things in order. And everybody's like, yes, we're gonna follow you. You're setting up but it seems to be like we're sliding into that. All of these figures like Elon Musk's and Trump's almost like they could technically be antichrists, because imagine they do actually deploy UBI. And look, you're getting free money. You don't have to work, you're getting free money. He's ended the war, so there's peace. There's no more wars with Ukraine or Iran or Russia and China. That's another scenario, right? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
people will think this person is, well, I think they'll probably stage, we got the UFO stuff. So that's got to come.
Yeah. We
They're gonna sell those as the ascended masters. Um, so either they'll be angelic beings or extraterrestrials who created us, and that's what the theosophy is here to prepare us to accept this, that these are our gods, true gods or creators or ascended masters. And that's where this, false messiah comes in.
Yeah. See, I see the war extending itself so that everything is just so bad and everybody's just so beat up and everything's just wrecked and everything. And then they show up and that will be the only way that you're going to be able to get people to sign up to this new agenda that they have. That's not going to be a nice one to sign up to. So basically, the only thing that we have really going for us is the return of Jesus because everything else looks really nasty. I don't want to be here.
I don't think there's a political solution. I was sharing George Carlin. As uncouth as George Carlin can be, there was a clip that I shared that I came across, and he's right. Even though half the time he rails against God and the Bible, the other half of the time he's right in his political analysis. And even some of that analysis is rooted in biblical principles. Like he said something, I've lost all faith in humanity. And then if you haven't figured that out, you're part of the problem. That's a biblical principle. The
Hmm.
Bible says 100% of man is fallen and sinful. If we could save ourselves, we would have, and there wouldn't have been a need for Jesus.
Hmm.
So George Carlin was right. This is why I agree. Some people call me black pilled, but like, no, he's right. There's no political solution. There's no faith in humanity. There just isn't. That's why Christ had to come from the external to. We were drowning all of humanity collectively to pull us up and save us. He's the Superman, and so George Carlin was right. There's no faith. There's not gonna be a great awakening. We're not gonna rise up and defeat the globalists. Gandalf was gonna come down the hill with the cavalry and save us. So, yeah, that's I agree with you.
Well, it's a time that's like it's never been before. So I'm not really looking for, a cozy experience. Um, I think one has to really build their relationship with Jesus, build that trust and faith. So when things do come your way, you're grounded. You're grounded in his word, you're grounded in his your your relationship with him. You know him. If you don't know him, I don't think he even says if you don't know me, you won't get through it. You need him to get through it. You need discernment. And that's why I've been doing these, well, starting to do interviews, because it's in my heart. I don't want to see anybody deceived and not make it back home with us. So, is there anything else that you'd like to tell my viewers that might be important? Any advice? Any, even just burning dung?
I know. I
Did
would
that
just
burn
say
well? Did it stink or anything?
no. It like when the dung is dry, it has no scent or smell. It's dry.
Nice.
You just throw it in the what do you call it? The forget the word now, the stove or whatever, and it burns. And you add the coal in because the dung burns quickly and the coal burns longer. Um, no, I would just say, not again. I just had an Orthodox priest today that I interviewed this morning, and not to be afraid. And I think just one of my examples, and maybe something people can emulate in their own ways, was me just having lived, in a humble way in the yurt in Mongolia, in nature, and because learning that way, that humble way of life, physically speaking, because if things do collapse and people lose their jobs and homes, a lot of people have said that, particularly for Americans who've grown up living wealthy, the third world doesn't have so much trouble when they move between classes because they were born innately accustomed to poverty. But
Mhm.
America hasn't experienced that yet. So psychologically, I can see, or Canadians or Americans, if you fall from upper middle class to middle class to poor, and that happened in the depression in Russia in the 90s, right? How many people drank themselves to death, committed suicide?
Yeah.
You don't have that resilience, and
No.
so it's good
Yeah.
to accustom. So I felt, and maybe in some ways, me going to Mongolia, my parents being from Yugoslavia, Croatia, already having ingrained that humility, um, that I can handle losing everything. And in fact, I've had this thought experiment. I feel like I'd be even more liberated if I lost everything. Like if I lost everything and I'm having to live off the land in the wilderness, that'd be great because I have no more obligations. I mean, it's kind of like your situation. I don't have to
Yeah.
report taxes. I don't have to think about taxes. I don't have to think about bills. I'm completely free. Just have some food and water, and you're good.
It's a little bit more difficult than that. And plus, I have no room for all my books. That's the biggest problem. But and it gets pretty darn cold. And I'd rather burn dung and coal than have to chop all the wood that I've been chopping. But it's okay. It gets me off the couch, which I don't have. And I'm active at my age. So that's all positive, right?
No, it is. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
actually reading. I'm in trouble because I sit a lot and I read like even if you exercise plus sit a lot, you're still in danger. So you actually have to, yeah, it's not easy. But I'll just end and say what else can I say? Just live a balanced life, have a good disposition. I use Richard Wurmbrand as an example, Voice of the Martyrs he founded. He was in prison for 14 years and he always maintained I view it as a chipper disposition in hardship, and so don't let him break you, don't let him get to you. Live your best life, but I think Jesus is that's the only important message getting through eternity, and I don't think there's any other remedy. Any of these, a lot of the alt media podcasts space either they don't talk about it or they sell you this new age stuff, which is woo woo. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's great, all of this nirvana stuff and this and that, but it's like, what do I do about death? What's your solution for death? You haven't given me a ready remedy for death. You're like, oh, we're just gonna become frequencies and float into the ether. I'm like, no, we're gonna die. You haven't given me for certain how to cross the river Styx, right? And so for me, ultimately, Jesus, the Bible said the Bible and its teachings is with certainty. You're going to die. There's a hell, there's a heaven. The only way to get through, Jesus is your psychopomp, so to speak, to take from their language. Um, and that's it. So,
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on and speaking with us today. And I guess we just have to hope that it's going to be at least we'll have seatbelts for the ride.
and if you
You
don't,
know?
I have that, the movie was it 300 Sparta attitude. Like,
Yes.
just if you're gonna kill me, kill me.
Yeah.
Actually, because that's not, then I don't have to worry about all of this stuff either.
Well, if you look at it, you make a decision, you're either in or you're out. And if you're in, then you're in. And if you're out, you're out. You just do what you have to do in life. And I find since I've been back on board with living a Christ-like life and building my relationship with Jesus, I I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty content. I don't a lot of things I find have been rolling off my shoulders really easy, a lot easier this year. The more the better the relationship I have with Jesus, I find I'm just happier and more at peace. And as things go on, I'm not in fear and it's not really bothering me. It's sad to see things. Of course, I'm having normal human emotions, but I've been really surprised at how kind of level I've been through all of this. And um, I'm pretty happy. So I guess I'm not complaining. But it's just I know I can see the difference in the spirit moving as things go on and progress. I guess that's the better way to put it.
Yeah, and I'll just add just one more thing. I had this thought the other day because I have three citizenships, and I have dreamed, because you miss your other homelands, and um, I dream about living life in Croatia as well as United States. And I think I would assume if I went back to America and I got a good job, in some ways my life would be a little more comfortable or luxurious in the U.S. than where it is in Mexico. But then I realized I'm like, maybe for a week, but like I'm actually content here. Like
Mhm.
on the surface level, cosmetic, living in a different area, the contentment comes from inside spiritually. So like
Yes.
I'm actually content where I don't need to go. For me, at the end of it'll be the same thing basically. In wherever I'm living on the planet, it really won't make me feel better in terms of being content, because that's just from your and
Hmm.
spiritually, that's where your
Hmm.
contentment comes from, not from carnally, physically.
Yes. And and you want that for everybody. And you can't, I guess we don't have control of that, Jesus does. So we just keep putting out these podcasts and interviews and doing the best we can, I guess. You have some really good guests. So where can people find you?
Geopoliticsandempire.com, the main website, and then from there, pick your poison, whatever social you prefer. X, I'm on X, on Telegram, the Substack for members. I do the weekly analysis, and we have occasional calls with members who just want to shoot the breeze. I joke to compare notes on how to survive the New World Order. Um, and yeah, that's about it. The podcast is on all podcast players and The video is on all the alternative video platforms. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much again for your time, Hrvoje, and you take care of yourself. Hopefully one day maybe we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, and good luck with your podcast.
Thank you.